This is one of the most addicting tofu dishes you've never tried before. And if you've had it, then you're probably here to uncover the secrets of this incredibly simple but tasty recipe. This is salt and pepper tofu, and I'm going to show you how to recreate this incredible meal without any fancy equipment, no hard to find ingredients, and it'll only take you 30 minutes to make. Just like the name suggests, the star of today's show is the humble tofu. By itself, a tasteless block of soybean curds, but with the right technique, becomes the foundation for one of the most addicting foods you've ever had. We'll start by draining our tofu from its watery prison, then cutting our tofu into our desired bite-sized pieces. You can make your tofu blocks as big or as small as you'd like. I prefer smaller cubes so each bite has maximum crunch and salt and pepper flavor. To achieve this, I'm making 5 cuts lengthwise and 3 cuts widthwise. From a top-down view, it should look something like this. Finally, you'll need to make one even cut height-wise to get perfect bite-sized tofu cubes. Look how cute these little guys are. Unfortunately, they're going into a pot of boiling water with a half a tablespoon of salt to boil for 2 to 3 minutes. This serves 2 purposes. Boiling draws out moisture from the tofu for a better fried texture, and the salt flavors the tofu so the inside isn't bland. After a few minutes, drain your tofu or scoop them out and let them sit on a tray to dry out. You can speed up the drying process by pressing them gently with some paper towels. But in the meantime, while our tofu cools and dries, we're going to prepare our salt and pepper mixture. Now, I said we're not going to deploy any fancy kitchen equipment in today's recipe, which means we're not toasting or grinding our own spices. Don't worry though, I promise you the results will be just as good as the restaurant. In a small bowl, combine 1 teaspoon of salt, 1 teaspoon of white pepper, half a teaspoon of MSG, half a teaspoon of garlic powder, and finally, half a teaspoon of sugar. Then mix it all together. You can substitute the white pepper with black pepper, but be aware that your results will vary slightly as white pepper has a unique earthy heat that is the secret to salt and pepper tofu. And that's it. You've unlocked a new spice blend that you can use on tofu, pork, seafood, or anything you fancy. By this time, your tofu will have cooled down and dried out, so we're going to dredge them before we deep fry. In a bowl, crack and whisk 1 egg until fully beaten, and in a separate bowl, add in about half a cup of cornstarch with a pinch of salt. We're going to coat our tofu cubes in the egg mixture, ensuring the egg fully coats each block of tofu, and then the same with the cornstarch. As a substitute, you can also use potato starch. Both create that perfect light and airy crunch that we're looking for. Once all your tofu has been coated, get out a pot suitable for deep frying and add enough oil to fully submerge our tofu during the fry. We want our oil to be about 350 degrees Fahrenheit, so once you've hit just above that mark, add in a couple cubes of tofu into the oil. You'll notice the temperature drop dramatically as soon as we add in that tofu, which is why we start at a slightly higher temperature. The tofu needs to fry for about 3 minutes before it turns into a light golden brown color and starts to rise to the surface, meaning the moisture from the tofu has evaporated. At this point, take them out and let them cool on a wire rack to prevent soggy tofu bottoms. After a few batches of frying, we're left with a crispy, crunchy piece of tofu. And if you're curious if this method works, just listen to how our tofu turned out. By the way, if you're enjoying the video, hit that like button and subscribe to the channel if you want to follow my culinary journey. Alright, we're in the home stretch now, and all we need to do is prepare the rest of our ingredients and give everything a dry tossing. We're going to finely dice a quarter of a bell pepper. I'm mixing red and yellow for presentation purposes, but use any color you want. We'll also need to finely dice 1/8 of an onion, crush and mince 2 cloves of garlic, and finally, roughly chop 2 stalks of green onions. Have these ready on deck close to the stove because the next part is going to happen fast. A wok is perfect for dry tossing, but if you don't have one, a normal frying pan will work just fine. Add a tablespoon of neutral oil to the pan and turn your burner to low. We're going to start by infusing garlic and chili flavor into our oil. Make sure to cook on a low heat to avoid burning the chili and garlic. You'll know you're at a good temperature if you hear the faintest sizzle. After a minute or until your garlic starts to brown, toss in the onions and bell pepper and turn the burner to high heat. We're slightly browning our veggies and evaporating any moisture from our peppers and onions because that's going to cause our crispy tofu to become sad, soggy tofu. After another minute or 2, we're going to then toss in our tofu and spring onions. Once the tofu is in, we'll need to act relatively fast as each second in the pan causes the crispy texture to deteriorate, aka soggy tofu. We're gradually sprinkling in the salt and pepper mixture while tossing our ingredients. I highly recommend adding the seasoning blend bit by bit to avoid over seasoning. And depending on your preferences, you may not use all the salt and pepper mixture, but the amount we made is more than enough for even the biggest salt enjoyer. Once you've tasted and are satisfied with the salt and pepper flavor, quickly grab your serving dish and transfer the goods. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is how it's done. Crispy tofu sprinkled with an addictive salt and pepper seasoning. Whether it's a side dish or the star of the show, I guarantee your guests will talk about why they keep coming back to this simple looking dish. If you do end up trying this recipe for yourself, let me know down in the comments how it went and if it met your expectations. I hope you learned something today or at least found this recipe informative. Until my next video, I will see you all next time.
Oh, I'm so tired and so hungry. That is hitting the spot. That's so good. Let's go, baby.